Hey there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with you from Circling Seattle Sports. This is Circling Seattle Sports on Converge. Obviously, things are a little different than what you're used to. Normally, I'm in the studio. I'm talking a little bit loud. A little bit louder, and I don't have a hotel room door behind me. If you saw the announcements, we are myself and Liv Lyons, who is asleep right now. Are in Peoria, Arizona for Mariners spring training. We're here for a few days, starting March 3rd through the 6th, back in time for the Kraken game on the 8th against the Winnipeg Jets. But we're here for a few days to get a sense of what's going on in spring training, talk to a few of the guys. We'll include that in our Mariners segment of the show, which will kick off the show since we really didn't have anything to go with the Seahawks. But yeah, get that spring training. We did it last year. It's a little different this year just because of how scheduling and things go. But here, we're going to make the most out of it and do what we can. So, just to start off with a quick little recap of spring training. We had something for you here that we did, and we'll throw it to that now.
So, with this year's Mariners team in spring training, it's interesting regarding spring training because normally this is where position battles are won and lost, right? There's a few things to look at in that regard. It'll be interesting to see who the backup catcher will be. It'll mainly, be Xavier Zavala. Mitch Garver is here to be the designated hitter, right? It's really only in an emergency situation or some other thing like that where he would catch, as the Mariners want to keep him healthy for the full slate of the season. They want to maximize his hitting power and his hitting ability. Zavala, is more of your traditional catcher. He does well defensively. Outside of that, he's just very average or below average in a lot of regards. The Mariners did acquire Blake Hunt via trade early into the offseason, but I don't really imagine him making it over Zavala. Harry Ford, who we talked to earlier, as you just saw, likely won't make the big league club. It'll be interesting to see where he starts in the minor league system, though. I highly doubt he goes straight back to Everett. I thought he played above his level there in a lot of senses. So it'll be interesting to see where Harry goes. But outside of that, with position battles, I don't see a lot. Emerson Hancock, who has performed well, kind of reaching the velocity of 96 in the most recent spring training game, has talked about wanting to be able to make the starting rotation, to make the big league camp. I just don't see it. With Bryce Miller adding pitches, Brian Wu having the stuff that he has, and then you've got the top three of Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby. I don't know where he fits in. I don't imagine the Mariners want to go to a six-man rotation just because they've talked about that. They've done that before, and when it's been ever mentioned since then, Scott Service has said don't say that around the starters. I don't imagine we'd go to a six-man rotation. Also, considering the fact with the five-man rotation, everyone's got their unique sort of routines. Logan Gilbert's got his very specific routine that he's got when he prepares for a start. After starts, Luis Castillo will take a jog around the ballpark. I've seen it several times. I've tried to get out of his way. So I just don't imagine the six-man rotation happening, and I don't imagine that they want to put Emerson Hancock in the bullpen either. Or even considering all of that, some folks have talked about just putting Bryce Miller into the bullpen right away. And considering what he's been able to add to his pitching repertoire, I wouldn't put him in there until we see that. So, Hancock's talked about it. I get the excitement. I think he will be an important part of the Mariners' future. I just don't see it happening right now. And outside of that, there really isn't a lot of competition outside of the third base. There was the talk of Luis Urias, who is dealing with that shoulder. It's funny because, the first time we heard about how, he's going to try to work to be good for opening day, at least being able to throw the ball. He showed up, per some reports from Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times, out of shape, out of throwing shape as well. So it's not great, especially for your third baseman. You got to be able to throw the baseball from one end of the diamond to the other, and he hasn't been able to do that. The hope is he's going to be able to do that by opening day. We won't know if that's something that he can do, but in the second to last spring training game that he played, he did hit a triple. So his hitting ability, so there, he's been hitting. That's a position to watch as well. Josh Rojas will likely be your opening day third baseman. Outside of that, J.P. Crawford at shortstop, we don't even need to talk about that. Second base, Jorge Polanco is obviously the plan there. You got to keep him healthy as well. Ty France has come into camp looking great from all intents and purposes. Intents and purposes is actually is the saying, I believe. You look at the outfield's interesting because obviously you've got Julio. Mitch wants to play right field as much as he can. And then left field's going to be something to watch. Dom Canzone has been somebody that has been picked as someone to watch this offseason in this spring training. So I'm really interested to see that. He did well in some of the most recent spring training games. Luke Raley provides a lot of power. He had a breakout year last year with the Rays. Taylor Trammell is a guy that doesn't have any more minor league options. So if he doesn't end up making the team to begin the year, he'll have to go on waivers before going down to AAA. So, there's talent. There's talent with the outfield. And then you've got the super utility players like Sam Haggerty and like Dylan Moore. I don't imagine any of those guys take a starting spot, but it's just interesting with this spring training that there isn't a lot of competition, a lot of position battles, because this is normally what happens during spring training. You've likely got your opening day lineup set. There's just a few things, third base, and maybe backup catcher that you're going to be looking at as well. So, I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see a little bit more tomorrow with the split squad game, and even then with split squad, you only get to see, obviously, a split of the roster. But if this Mariners team is healthy, I am encouraged at what's going to be able to happen. I know that there's been talks leading into spring training that if the Mariners see something, an opportunity to add to this roster, then they will. But I just don't see it happening, and I'd bet against it.
So with that sort of recap there of what's going on with the Mariners in spring training, what to look for, we do have some updates. So we go to the show itself here because you saw backlots me talking about that. We'll go into some of the games. Again, I mentioned it last week, you only take so much stock in the games that the Mariners play in spring training. You're really looking at some of the players and their individual performances, usually how playoff positions shake out, but obviously not so much the case here. Looking at the first 4 games of the past week here, February 26th at the Cincinnati Reds was a split squad game, a 2-1 win. So far, it's the only win of spring training for the Mariners. Our player of the game was relief pitcher Reed Van Scooter. He isn't normally a relief pitcher, but with spring training, you're trying to get a bunch of pitchers in. He pitched in relief in this game. 2 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, and 4 strikeouts on the game, which was pretty nice to see in those 2 innings of work. Then February 27th at the San Francisco Giants, a 10-10 tie. Yes, a tie. Our player of the game, shortstop Ryan Bliss, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 RBI. Bliss is a guy that's going to be really interesting. Came over in that trade from the Diamondbacks, has that plus speed, has some hitting ability, but obviously folks are looking at his defense to improve. In AAA Tacoma this year, February 28th versus the Kansas City Royals, a 7-9 loss. Our player of the game, left fielder Taylor Trammell, 2 hits, 1 run, and 1 RBI. Another guy that's looking to make a name for himself and might find himself in AAA Tacoma. He doesn't have any minor league options left, so if he doesn't break camp with the big league club, he's going to have to go through waivers in order to get down to AAA, and I highly doubt he clears waivers, personally. So then February 29th versus the Chicago White Sox was a 5-6 loss. It was a split squad game as well. Our player of the game, right fielder Cade Marlowe. Cade, 2 hits, 2 runs, and 1 RBI. Cade, another guy who's looking to make a name for himself. With this Mariners team in that crowded outfield, he had a nice game, and he's had a nice spring training so far. We go to the final 3 games of the past week for spring training. March 1st at the Colorado Rockies, a 9-10 loss. Our player of the game, third baseman Josh Rojas, 2 hits, 1 run, and 3 RBIs. Rojas played second base after being acquired by the Mariners this past year. around the trade deadline. But, him and Luis Urias are two of the guys who are battling for that third base spot. Rojas in this game, 2 hits, 1 run, and 3 RBI, which included a homer as well. March 2nd versus the Oakland Athletics was an 8-12 loss. Our player of the game, third baseman Brian Anderson. Anderson, 1 hit and 3 RBIs. Anderson is the guy we talked about last week. Maybe he's able to put up a fight in that third base competition. When you hit home runs, that certainly helps. So then to wrap us up, March 3rd at the San Diego Padres was a 4-12 loss. Our player of the game, once again, Cade Marlowe, in center field this time, 1 hit, 1 run, and 2 RBIs. So that's what we've got for those games. I mean, again, like I've said with the Mariners, we're not really looking at too much with these spring training games. You're looking at the individual efforts. You're looking at guys to get better. That's why I'm more focused on the team news side of things. So with the banner you see, we will throw it over to something pretty important where we talked about the Matt Brash updates that we got this past week. And I'll throw it to Backlots Me once again.
So some of the major news regarding the Mariners this past week was Matt Brash. Everybody was really worried about Matt Brash. He had to get some tests done. Some of the wording from Scott Service was pretty vague, that we'd hear about him in a few days. And usually with that territory comes some sort of major long-term injury. Now, what we learned a few days ago was that Brash was dealing with elbow inflammation that was similar to some previous tests that had happened with him in the past. Now, he won't be ready to go for opening day. That's highly unlikely because he will likely be on the injured list to start the year. He'll likely need I'm saying likely a lot. He'll need a full spring training to build up, get his arm going. The Mariners going to be really cautious with him just because of how important he was. He was one of the highest used relievers last year in all of Major League Baseball. So expect the Mariners to be cautious with Matt Brash, and with good reason, right? I mean, we've all seen how important Matt Brash has been to this bullpen, but all in all, this is good news, just considering how troublesome some of the wording that you could have taken from Scott Service was. There was a lot of thought that he might get shut down for the year. Some experts thought that this was going to take him out for a long time. At the end of the day, if Matt Brash is going to be fine for most of the season as opposed to just opening day, I'm fine with that, right? So that was a little bit concerning, but it's still big news. So don't expect him to, and especially with Gregory Santos also coming into camp, having dealt with an injury that he was working on throughout the course of the offseason as well. It was starting to look not great. But again, thankfully, with Matt Brash, his elbow inflammation, it's a short-term stinger of all things, not for all of all things, but thankfully, again, it's not something that should hold him out for a long point of the upcoming MLB season. So that's what we've got with Matt Brash.
All right, so you got the news on Brash there. We do have a few other things. On February 26th, it was announced that Julio Rodriguez was dealing with some hand inflammation. He wasn't concerned about it. He was able to make his spring training debut a few days later. It was just he'd been swinging the bat a lot. He didn't have his own bats that he normally works with. And because of the different knobs, his hands were not really feeling it. So luckily, that's not something to be concerned about. Also, speaking of Luis Urias, on March 1st, he had started throwing in infield drills, and he will be limited in doing so. But the hope is that he can be ready to go by opening day on March 28th. And some other team-related news, sort of tidbits here. On the 27th, the Mariners experimented with the 27th and 28th. They did this. They experimented with a new streaming option to broadcast Cactus League games, which was nice. They only tried it for 2 games, with a bunch of the spring training games coming up not being broadcast on Root Sports. Fans are really hoping that they bring this back, and I think it'd be great. I mean, it was really simple. It had a few different camera angles. It had a score bug, and it had the radio broadcast. That's all you really need. I mean, especially for spring, I more than, and they included the hydro races. Like, what else could you ask for? So I hope that comes back, but we'll end up seeing it. Also, on February 28th, we got the news Colt Emerson added 20 pounds in the offseason, one of the 3 Mariners draft picks from this past year's draft, in the first round. That is one of those 3 draft picks in the first round. He's been feeling more explosive and been hitting the ball further, so that's exciting. for one of the Mariners prospects. On the 29th, Bryce Miller will be limited in spring and early into the year in order to protect his forearm and elbow. So watch for Bryce to be limited early on. And then on the 2nd and the 3rd, we have a total of 15 players that were reassigned to minor league camp. None of these guys I really thought were going to be going to the big league club or breaking camp. And again, like I talked about on the backlots, this year's roster and this starting lineup is mostly set. It's just kind of about some things here and there that the team will have to decide. So those players, right-handed pitchers Corey Abbott, Heath Hembry, Jimmy Joyce, Sean Poppin, and Travis Kuhn. Left-handed pitcher Holden Laws. Infielders Rangel Revelo, Caden Polkovich, Brock Roden, Leo Rivas, and Hogan Windish. Catchers Jake Anchia and Matt Scheffler, as well as outfielders Spencer Packard and Alberto Rodriguez. So that will wrap up our team news bit of things, and normally this would wrap up our Mariners, but instead we've got something else to show you. So we will go into that right about here.
So we had something special here. It is technically, by the time you're seeing this, it is Monday. And Monday was an off day for the Mariners. They didn't have any games to play. The Peoria Sports Complex was busy because the Padres were playing, and it's a shared facility. But Liv Lyons, who's behind the camera right now in two different senses, and I met Harry Ford. It's the second time that we've had Harry do an interview on Circling Seattle Sports platforms. But Harry talked a little bit about he was catching for George Kirby here on this lot, actually. George Kirby and his intensity, working with Cal Raleigh throughout spring training, some of the other younger draft picks in the recent drafts that weren't part of Harry's draft, with Ty Pete, Colt Emerson, guys like that, and about his personal growth, both as a man and as a player, since being drafted by the Mariners. So here is that. So Harry Ford, you were working with George Kirby back there. I just want to ask what it's like working with him, because we hear a lot about how intense the guy is, and obviously, an excellent pitcher. But what's your experience been like with George?
Working with George, he's really fun to catch. He can throw all his pitches whenever he wants to, wherever he wants to, and he's a great competitor out there. He's a battler. So it's always fun getting to catch someone as skilled and as competitive as he is.
You had a really strong year last year. People have been really excited with you throwing guys out from your knees this spring. How have you felt this past year and coming into this year, just with your growth and trying to excel, since being drafted by the Mariners?
Sorry, can you say it?
Oh, yeah. You had a good year last year with the Sox. There was a playoff run, which I know you guys wanted to go further. And then this spring training, people have been excited by it, throwing guys out from your knees, that sort of thing. How have you really seen your own growth, since being drafted by the Mariners?
I've grown in all areas, grown as a player, grown as a man, and every day I'm learning something new. Getting to be around all the other guys that we have here has helped a bunch, and they teach me something every day. And so I've been growing a lot in all areas.
What have you seen? Because I just saw you guys were with Ty Pete as well, amongst a few other guys. A lot of folks are excited by that draft class as well, with Colt Emerson and Johnny Farmello. Do you have any interaction with some of those guys? Obviously with spring, I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I see him around. We have a Bible study going on, and
oh, really?
Johnny and Colt were there last night, so I went out to talk to them briefly. I see them around here and there. Don't always have time to talk, but yeah, they're good guys.
Then just to kind of start wrapping you up here, I know, spring, it brings all the guys together from the organization. How much interaction have you had with Cal, and what have you been able to, moments share with him, maybe learn from him, or just kind of be around the guy?
Yeah, I do all my stuff with Cal. Catching wise, I'm always around him when he's catching, and in the locker room and stuff. He's taught me a lot just about how to be what it means to be a catcher, what it means to try to be a leader, and he does the best by just doing it and showing the guys how it's done. So being around him is I'm lucky to be able to have that.
And then just to close you out here, you before we started, you talked about seeing you at the ballpark with the Mariners, and then obviously you spent the season with the Aquasox. What kind of sense have you gotten about Mariners fans? Because it's a big fan base. People get really excited, especially about some of the prospects as well. What has your interactions been like, and your thoughts on Mariners fans as well?
Well, I mean, the fans, they bring the energy every day. It's amazing getting to just see them in spring training, and even at just the Aquasox games, and on TV whenever we see the Mariners games. It's just a really amazing fan base who always supports the players and wants the championship to be brought. And they're really electric, really great people.
So after hearing from myself and Harry, we go over here to wrap up this Mariners segment. We've got 24 days from the time that this video goes out. It'll be 23 by Tuesday until Mariners opening day. So the next, 7 games or so? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. The Mariners will play 7 games starting on March 5th. It's a split squad day. On the road, they'll play the Cleveland Guardians at 12:05. At home at Peoria Sports Complex, where Liv and myself will be. March 5th versus the Texas Rangers at 12:10. March 6th at the Kansas City Royals, 12:05. March 7th versus the Los Angeles Angels at 12:10. March 8th is a split squad game at the Chicago Cubs at 12:05. Then wrapping up March 9th at the Milwaukee Brewers is a 12:10 start. And then March 10th versus the San Francisco Giants is a 1:10 p.m. Pacific time start. Since the Storm don't have any news over the past week, we go straight over to our Sounders, who not fell, but they didn't record a positive result in their home opener match against Austin FC. So you look at this one, it's a 0-0 draw. Our player of the match was midfielder Josh Atencio with an 8.7 match rating, 81% passing, 2 chances created, 1 shot on target, 3 of those off target, 2 block shots, 5 touches in the opposing box, and 14 passes into the final third. Our photo of the game here by Liz Walter is actually not during the gameplay. The Sounders debuted a new light show ahead of this match that they'll play throughout the course of the season. And this is Paul Rothrock here on your screen reacting to it. It was just a great photo. And why I'm kind of going through this really quickly is because Backlots Me also talked about this match. So we will go to that right about now.
So with that Sounders match, I mean, it's frustrating, and it's frustrating because of how this team has been essentially since CONCACAF Champions League. They've been able to generate chances on the offensive end of things, but they haven't been able to convert them, right? And then, I mean, that got them a really solid seed in the Western Conference playoffs last year, but it didn't fare well for them in the long run because LAFC, in that match that knocked them out of the playoffs, knew we just need to score 1 goal, and then we're fine as long as we're defensively solid. So, for the club to lose this home opener in the fashion that they did, I understand the frustration. I really do. I'm not worried about it in the long term just because it's the second match of the season. It is your home opener. You're without João Paulo and Albert Rusnak. You could mention that you were without Stephen Fry in this match as well, but I'm looking more at the offensive end of things, right? You're without João Paulo and Albert Rusnak, and the club has still generated relatively fine in all around anyway with these guys out. Defensively, we don't have to touch on it too much defensively. Andrew Thomas did get his first career MLS shutout, so that was nice for him, especially being an interesting story, dealing with a long-term injury, being loaned out by the Sounders in the past, essentially being the third goalkeeper for a long period of time. Nice for him to get that first career shutout at the MLS level. The back line has played well. Center back Nathan is working to get his green card, so that's why he wasn't available for selection this past match. Yamar continues to be out, not related to injury, so you still got Nuhu. Alex Roldan was back for this match, and Jackson Reagan, who performed extremely well. That back line has performed well. Andrew Thomas performed well in this match against Austin as well, even though he didn't get that many chances against him or opportunities against him. The midfield played well. I mean, you've got Josh Atencio still there. He was probably the best Sounder of the match in this one. Obed Vargas played well, and then you had Pedro de la Vega as a starting 10. He looked good, but he did have to leave with what looked like a cramp. I mean, he was able to walk off relatively fine. After the match, Brian Schmetzer said that some tests will need to be done, including an MRI, but he didn't think it was going to be on the long-term side of things. Leo Chu had to leave the match with cramps as well. He was able to create some stuff in space as well. To wrap it up with looking at this Austin FC match, I understand the frustration of being able to generate and not score, but I'm not putting the big red panic button and slamming it down like a lot of the fan bases. I understand it. It's your job to be a fan because you don't do anything else. That's fine. But to say that the season is over already, same insert your adjective here, different year, sure. We're 2 matches in. It's a long season, and you're without several key players that would help you on the offensive end of things. They installed new tactics this offseason. Let's let it play out.
So you hear about that there. There was that. Might have alluded to it there, but there is the pre-match injury report. It also continued to loom large. Reed Baker Whiting continues to be out with that left hamstring injury. Goalkeeper Stephen Fry is out with that right hamstring injury. Midfielder João Paulo still out with the left hip. Bradilio Rodriguez out with the right hamstring. Yeimar continues to be out, not due to injury-related reasons. Defender Nathan's out, not due to injury, as we talked about. And Albert Rusnak continues to be out with an ankle injury. Ruy Diaz was questionable with a rib injury, and that's why he didn't start in this match, but he did play, and as you might have heard, he made his impact felt, hit the crossbar once, and had some good opportunities, but it wasn't able to finish them, much like the rest of the club. So, yeah, as we talked about, just kind of frustrating, knowing what they're generating, but like I said, not panicking quite yet. At least, we'll see. Maybe that'll change. But the Sounders sit at a no wins, 1 draw, 1 loss record. They have 1 point in the standings. Wrong button. Looking ahead, their next match is March 9th at the Philadelphia Union. That's a 5:30 p.m. Pacific time start. Philadelphia is also looking for their first win. They've had 3 draws in their last 3 matches played, 2 of those being in MLS regular season action. So we'll have to see who's going to get their first win of the season here, or if it's going to be another draw for Philadelphia at least. From the Sounders, we go over to the Kraken, who had the busiest week of the teams, I'd say, that we cover. So we'll go into it. February 26th versus the Boston Bruins. The Kraken beat Boston for the second time in a matter of a few weeks by a score of 4-3 in the shootout. Our player of the game, you're going to hear his name a lot. Goaltender Philip Grubauer, 29 saves, a .906 save percentage, and was perfect in all 3 shootout attempts for Boston, leading to this photo, our photo of the game, by Liz Walter. February 29th versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, a 2-0 win. Our player of the game once again. Goaltender Philip Grubauer, 33 saves, and his 3rd shutout as a Kraken. It was his 21st career shutout. Our photo of the game by Liz Walter is this Alex Wenberg goal late into the 3rd period that helped give the Kraken that 2-goal lead and helped them pull away. Philip Grubauer is our player of the game for this March 2nd loss versus the Edmonton Oilers, a 1-2 defeat. But it was a frustrating one. Seattle generated a lot offensively, as we'll talk about in a second here. But the Kraken just weren't able to convert all of those chances that they were generating. Our player of the game, as I mentioned, Philip Grubauer, 22 saves and a .917 save percentage against a tough Edmonton team that has had his number. Gruby looked good and was able to keep Seattle in that game. Our photo of the game, though, looms large as Connor McDavid, you can see in focus, and Philip Grubauer looking up at the screen out of focus. This photo of the game by Rio Giancarlo. And then the game that actually happened a few hours ago by the time that I recorded this, March 4th at the Calgary Flames, a 4-2 win. Our player of the game number 1, goaltender Philip Grubauer, 35 saves, a .946 save percentage, and 1.24 goals saved above expected. Player of the game 2, forward Jared McCann, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 4 shots on goal, 1 plus-minus, and 1 hit. Before that Calgary game happened, my player of the week already was Philip Grubauer. He had a .944 save percentage over those last 4 games, including a shutout, including a being perfect in the shootout versus the Bruins. But Backlots Me had something to say about Grubauer, so we'll go to that right.
So, I mean, given the fact that I've mentioned his name for the past 3 games, it makes sense that my player of the week is Philip Grubauer. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with Joey Decord right now. This is just Dave Haxtell goalie management. We've talked about this the last 3 years that the Kraken have existed, which is all of them. Haxtell, when his goalie's riding hot, he goes with that goaltender. And that's going on right now with Philip Grubauer. We saw it with Joey Decord's most recent streak, right? He just kept going after him. Was it 22 out of 25 possible games, right? So, to see Gruby get that shutout against the Penguins was great. He played well in the game against Boston. The shootout against Boston and the shutout against the Penguins. Sorry, almost lost it there. And then even in this loss to Edmonton, I really wouldn't blame Grubauer that much. I blame this game more on the loss, with the failure to convert on the chances that the team generated. It's really nice, though, to be able to see Grubauer perform so well, dealing with this injury this year, having to have Chris Drieger up, dealing with what he's dealt with throughout the course of his time here, which is just sort of the unnecessary hate comments throughout it. I get it. It's a big contract. But when he's playing well, whether it was the playoff run, right now, different parts of the last 2 seasons. So to see him put up these performances in that shootout win to go perfect against the Bruins, and that's not easy. The Bruins are a great team, and to be able to beat them in a shootout, I likened that game to the game that the Kraken played last year against the Bruins. And there's, I almost said City Connect jerseys. Again, being at the facility, it feels a lot like the Mariners' name is just in my head a lot. But that last year, with the reverse retros on, that game that was so tight, so well, it was a great game, all things considered. To shut out the Penguins was big. They haven't had the year that they wanted to, but they still got a lot of talent. And then the Oilers game, the Oilers have historically had Philip Grubauer's number, and to perform as well as he did in this one, again, I'm not taking a lot of fault here in that loss against him, rather the lack of converting on your chances for the Kraken. So he's our player of the week, at least for me. It'll be interesting to see when Joey gets back in. Obviously, with the back-to-back, he'll probably have to play by the time you're seeing this tomorrow against the Winnipeg Jets, but I digress. So that's our player of the week.
So you just heard about Gruby. I'll quickly touch on it as we try to get through this. It's been tough. This team's played well. They haven't gotten the bounces throughout the course of the season like we saw in that Edmonton game. They've been hurt for most of the year. Andrei Burakovsky missed 2 of the games over the past week, so it's been tough. But like I'm about to say, Backlots Me had some more thoughts. I think the team sells a few pieces, so we'll go into that other piece from the Backlots, right? So that's what we've got for the Kraken. They sit at a 27, 23, and 11 record overall. They'll play 2 games against the Winnipeg Jets this upcoming week. The first of them is the second game of a back-to-back following that Winnipeg Jets game. That Calgary Flames game. March 5th at the Jets is a 5 o'clock start. Then March 8th versus the Jets is a 7 o'clock start. That's the second game of the 2 over the course of this week. And Seattle, after dealing with all this stuff with the trade deadline that's coming and will likely come by the time this game comes, when the actual trade deadline is, they'll have to play one of the best teams in the entire NHL twice over the course of just a few days. So it's not the most fun for the Kraken, but they don't really get much choice or much say, and they didn't really put themselves in a better position to be able to withstand this. So they really can't blame anybody, sadly, except for themselves. So that's what we've got when it comes to Kraken and Kraken-related news. We move over here to the Reign after kind of a not really quiet, but it felt quieter in some respects. Week for the Reign, they announced some preseason roster moves on the 26th of February. So this updated preseason roster includes the additions of the Welsh players Angrahad James and Lily Woodham. Woodham joined the team and departed for international duty already, while James, this is on the 26th, of course, James will join the first team following the international window. They did add goalkeeper Haley Cole and defender Judy Alcuckle. She was the latter name was previously with the club back in 2022, first as a national team replacement player before earning a contract for the remainder of the season. She also suffered a season-ending injury after signing that deal. So they've been added to the roster as non-roster invitations. Look over here at the current roster by position. You can see Cole makes it 4 goalkeepers on the preseason roster, 11 defenders, including non-roster invitation Jody Elkical. And you've got Jimena Lopez still on loan, McKenna Carr, the draft pick, midfielders, 9 of them. Luwani still on loan. James is on the as should be reporting after the international window. Sam Meza with the draft pick. Ji So Yun is also, well, by the time that this is out now, she has returned. And then with the forward groups, Emery Adamus included in the non-roster invitations. Gianna Gorley was part of that as well. Juju Harris and Mandy Mercado was one of the draft picks as well. From there, we go over to the news on the 27th, where the Reign revealed their new kits. So they got new kits, obviously, with the rebrand. You're gonna have to have new kits, and there's a new look. And so the Reign, they're really playing into that royal blue and the gold here. And so we've got 2 kits. This photo here better shows those 2 off as I'm trying to get some of the information regarding them here. Shoot. But yeah, you can kind of see them here. The NWSL has the Nike branding, so they're going to have the Nike logo on them, and they're designed by Nike as well. But yeah, we'll look at those here. So the navy blue kit that you can see on Just Fishlock there is the primary. For the press release was designed to showcase the core values of the club. The name originates from the club's progression over the last 12 years. It's named Reflection, while reflecting on the journey embraced to get there. The kit is a reflection both past and present of coaches, players, and staff who have helped write and tell the story of the club. It's also a reflection of Seattle and the communities and supporters who have proudly represented the club for over a decade. So that's got some nice meaning behind it. The other one, the one in white, the one that you see Lou Barnes wearing on your screen, is the Summit kit. It was inspired by the breathtaking mountains of the Pacific Northwest and the historical excellence of the club. Another design that captures the club's connection to the environment. The Summit kit is a clean blend of the club's new color palette. So you can see that there. The kits still have the Black Future Co-op Fund. The Black Future Co-op Fund continues to be the club's longtime kit front partner. The Black Future Co-op Fund serves as a critical catalyst for change in the club's community, investing in areas that are underserved and underappreciated, in an effort to elevate the community to a more equitable place. As Washington's first Black-led philanthropy, they directly provide more resources, collective power, and support to Black Washingtonians, a mission that Seattle Reign FC is proud to support on the front of its kit. The top back of each jersey does feature the logo of Multicare, another valued partner of the Reign. This partnership is deeply rooted in community and promotes holistic health and the well-being of all communities in the state of Washington, as seen in the Reign collaborative series Reflections. Both of those are available now. So we've got that. Also talking with the Reign. Let me know what you think of the kits, first of all. But you look at the Reign. I talked about a few of the players, the Welsh players, Ji So Yun, and then the Canadian players as well, being out with international duty. All 6 Reign players were away with their national teams, and they all 6 of the players who are away with their national teams did make an appearance for those teams. In total, 5 goals were scored by 4 Reign FC players across the 6 matches played over the past week. For Canada, Quinn and Jordan Heidema both recorded 2 starts. Jordan Heidema also subbed on in a match, and Jordan Heidema scored 2 goals. So big for Jordan and Team Canada as they're in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup. The Korea Republic, Ji So Yun had 2 starts. over the course of the past week and did score 1 goal on a nice free kick. And then for Wales, all 3 players, Jess Fishlock, Angrad James, and Lily Woodham, all started in the one match that they played. And both Fishlock, Jess, and Lily Woodham both scored a goal, which was cool to see. So we will continue with the Rain preseason. We do have matches to look forward to with the club. They are preseason, though. The club did announce that they will have 2 preseason friendlies. First, the Rain versus the University of Washington women's soccer team on March 6th at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time at Husky Soccer Stadium. This is open to the public. It costs $10 to go in, and half of that cost goes directly to the soccer team, which is nice. I'm going to try to get to that after I get back on Wednesday. We'll see if I'm going to be able to make that. I don't think so, but we'll see. But that's cool. Just with the Huskies on the team, Olivia Vondriat, McKenna Carr was at UW for a few years. Shay Holmes. I must be missing some. Mackenzie Weiner, who recently signed. So there's a lot of cool ties though. There, Shay Holmes has her sister Jace Holmes is on the team. So Jace Holmes is on UW. So some cool things there. And then the other thing, 3 days after that, Seattle Rain versus the Portland Thorns on March 9th at 3 o'clock at Providence Park. This one is closed to the public. So nice, another to get some preseason matches. And I was aware of the UW one. I was just kind of surprised if they weren't going to have another one, but there was the news there of the match against Portland. So that'll wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed that we went around the back lots and filmed some stuff there. Just wanted to really incorporate that where we are right now into this week's recording. I apologize if I'm trying to talk a little quiet. I really hope I didn't wake Liv up, but I imagine I did probably a few times. But yeah, that's just how it worked out. We're doing what we can down here. So I hope you take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you're enjoying the new logo.